Well, hello, everybody. This is Curtis Broom, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this introduction to the NDA invitation process for an extraordinary new company. Well, actually, an extraordinary new concept called Rippln. And it is an amazing concept. It's one that's creating massive amounts of excitement around the world. In fact, in such a short period of time, from just a few hundred people a short time ago in Dallas, Texas, who had an opportunity because they were under an NDA to have the curtains opened so they could see in much more detail this concept, what is truly going to be a game changer, truly a global shift type of a concept. They were able to see the details that opened their eyes, and that's why they were so excited. And now that from those few hundred, those hundreds of thousands in over 200 plus countries and territories around the world are now doing what has happened with you. They've shared with someone an opportunity to execute an electronic NDA and to learn what they've learned. And that's why you're here. So what I'm going to do is over the next 15-20 minutes, we're going to go through this, pretty quickly, but we're going to lay a very good foundation so that you'll understand why whoever it was that directed you to this information is so excited, and why they truly want you to be aware of it, and why the timing is so important. There are some significant forces, some significant shifts that are taking place, and they're coming together in a very strong way. And you're about to see something that has never been done like this. But to lay the foundation, we're going to go back to some things that I think you will recognize, some things that even if not consciously, as we go through it, you'll realize that you are aware of them, or you'll recognize that yes, those things were in fact the case, and you'll see those historical examples of indicators that show where things are headed. And then when we can show you what's happening today, you'll see that those same indicators, though in a much more dramatic way, exist now. And so let's do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go into a presentation slide presentation. We're going to go to the slides. Occasionally I'll come off and come back and talk with you personally, because I think that's important so we can have that personal interaction. But let's kind of move into a process of helping you lay a foundation of understanding why whoever it was that brought you here is so excited to have you see this information. We're going to talk to you about a concept, and it is really, it's more than just a company or a thing. It's a concept. It's a whole new concept that's never been seen, but it's about strategies to win big in the mobile and social and gamification space, because that is where the world's going. And we're going to talk to you right now about some trends. Now, trends are different than fads. Fads are, kind of flash in the pan, come and go. Minor impact, but nothing lasting. Trends, true trends, are unstoppable forces. They're like tidal waves. You can either choose to go with them or be drowned by them, but they're unstoppable, they're inevitable, and they're going to happen. Now, what I want to do is I want to share with you a couple of incredibly well-known names and examples, but let's look historically at how those trends evolved, and I think you'll see some interesting things. First, let's talk about that online giant Google, the largest search platform on earth. And when Google many years ago had established such dominance in search, they also decided they were going to get into the free email environment. But at that time, there were many already in the space of free email. AOL had it, Yahoo, MSN through Hotmail already had free email. But they saw a place to be different. You see, Yahoo and Hotmail, whatever they had originally expected to be, what it evolved into in many cases was a place for people to just set up free email to send their junk mail. I had multiple Yahoo or Hotmail accounts that I would use to go get information online, but I never looked at it again because it would fill up with the junk mail and the spam, and I just used my normal email for real, true email communication. And Google said, we're going to go a different way. In fact, when they first created it, it was called Google Mail. We know it as Gmail today, but it was called Google Mail. And they said, first, we're going to make it cool. We're going to make it different. We're going to look at the way it's designed and structured so it's more intuitive, and it creates tremendously powerful impact for business use, but even for personal use. And so they created a concept that was cool and different. Then what they did is they said, we're going to release it only internally within our own employees, because we're going to get real human feedback first, and we're going to allow it to evolve. And then now today, of course, it's known as Gmail. But then when Gmail or Google Mail first came out, only internally could people access it. Then they gave them a very unique situation. And now, of course, we know it as the red M. When it first launched beyond the employees, it was done by invitation only. The employees could invite a few, 2 or 3, and then they could get 4 or 5, and then those could invite by invitation only. In fact, what many people forget is for the first 2 years, You could only get a Google Mail or Gmail account by invitation. There were people selling on eBay, auctioning on eBay invitations, $50, $100 to get a Gmail invitation, a Google Mail invitation. What happened was it created such tremendous desire that when they finally released the limits, of course, it exploded and now dominates worldwide, globally, the free email environment. But here's the thing, it wasn't about email. It was never about free email. You see, Google had a long distance vision, but when people first saw it, they thought it was about free email. What was it really? For Google, it was about creating something that was cool, that would separate it from everything else, be truly high value, but then most importantly, it was just the passport. Today, a Gmail address is a passport to everything Google. If you have a Gmail email account, you have access to your Google Calendar, you have access to Google Drive, you have access to Google Voice, you have communication for free through your email, you have access to Google Plus, and through that you have access to do global hangouts where you can literally hang out with people from around the world in interactive ways, as we are doing right here through this recorded live presentation. And you get access to your YouTube channel. Everything Google, your email account is really your passport. But when it started, people thought it was just free email. And by invitation only, it became truly something of unique and desired result, and people wanted access to it. Now, that's one interesting model. Let's just set that aside. Let's take a look at another name you're going to recognize, Amazon. Back in 1994, a guy named Jeff Bezos, who came from a financial investment background, but he was very entrepreneurially spirited. He saw this emerging thing called e-commerce, and he said, I believe it'll be huge. But at that time, that was a very daring thought, because the most predominant form of e-commerce back then was really pornography, because most people weren't comfortable yet giving their credit cards online for just average transaction. It wasn't like going to the store and picking up the merchandise and looking at it and feeling it and being able to spin it around and really look at its quality. Is it really going to show up, or am I going to get ripped off? And so when Jeff Bezos started, he named his company Amazon, but he started selling only books. Now, let's do this for a second. I want to ask just a simple question of you. Let me come back here for a second. And let's look face to face and let's talk about this for a second. People thought he was about selling books, and yet he called his company Amazon. Now, if he really was about selling books, why didn't he just call it bookseller.com? I mean, realistically, wouldn't that have made a lot more sense? But you see, here's what Jeff Bezos understood, that first and foremost, he had to gain your trust. He had to do something that would be so simple and so safe that everybody could realize, well, it's worth giving a shot. It's a book. You don't have to worry about it. It's a book. You don't have to worry about whether the words are spelled properly or if it's going to be a different book than that. It's a book. And he realized that by going online without the big stores, he could create warehouse pricing, sell it to you less expensively, buy a couple at a time, I'll send it to you for free, save you the convenience of driving in traffic. But I just want you to try it, because when you give me the credit card and I charge you and your books show up, you begin to trust me. In fact, back in his early interviews, I read one once, he called it trust commerce. He wanted to establish trusted commerce, because once that happened, here's what he knew what would also happen. With books, I now know everything about you. I know if you're old or young, male or female. I know if you're liberal or conservative. I know what you're religious and what your views are. I know what your political views are. I know what your socioeconomic perspective is. I know everything about you. And then I can start allowing you to interact, which is what happened. And people talked and communicated, and they reviewed, and they shared ideas. And then he said, I'd like to do some surveys. And because we trusted him, we answered them. What was your education? What's this or that? Your interests, your hobbies? What's your household income? Why did we have to tell Jeff our household income to buy a $12 book? Because he was never, ever about books. That was the way to get in and create trust. Instead, he was creating the largest and most powerful demographic database that existed. And today, if you notice the logo, let's go back to the slide for just a second. If you notice the logo today, it's the same company, except it's now the arrow that goes from A to Z, because Amazon was never about selling books. It was about selling you everything from A to Z. But if you trust us first and we can understand who you are demographically, we can bring you everything from A to Z, and we will sell you everything. And Amazon is now the largest retailer on the internet. on the planet. Why? Or on the online. Why? Because. Why did he choose the name Amazon? It was never about selling books. The Amazon is the largest river on the planet, and it has millions of spider-like fingertips reaching out into the jungles to drag all the moisture into the largest river on the planet. He was always going to be the biggest. That was his vision. But he first had to get you to trust him. My point in these two examples is that what people see at first is oftentimes never what it is intended to be. It's only intended to be where it starts. And only those with great vision might be able to see where it's going, but everyone at some point will figure it out. And that's what we want to talk to you about. You're here to see this introduction because somebody has seen behind the curtain. They're under NDA. They have seen something that you just haven't. They're not smarter, they're not luckier, maybe it was just timing. They just want you now to know what they know. Because right now we're in the midst of the shift of trillions. Money is moving from traditional ways to promote to extraordinary ways that are high speed and high powered, and most importantly, they're mobile. They're in the palm of your hand. Everything is moving mobile. We see it everywhere. 87% of the world's population have mobile phones. I don't know that there's anything else that 87% of the world population has singularly, but they have mobile phones. And the percentage that are smartphones is expanding dramatically. That percentage of total mobile phones that are smartphones, people who decided, I don't just want to talk, I want to engage. It's something like over 25%. That's over like 1.5 billion and growing dramatically. Dramatically. Why? These are people who want to engage. They want to immerse themselves. It's a complete experience. Look at what's happened mobily. Everything moving mobile. By the way, it's not a trend now. Not anymore. Smartphones, this is a way of life. They're indispensable. They've transformed our behavior. We are more fully engaged. It's more real estate. We can see more things. And the trends are everywhere. In fact, when iPads came out, everybody said, oh, how cool, they're so small, except they're now iPad minis because the iPad's too large long term. Everything is moving to the palm of the hand, and everyone realizes it. The venture capital firms understand it. There's no big rush of money to .coms. Facebook's IPO kind of made that an ultimate reality. The movement is towards mobile. In fact, mobile companies are creating huge multi-million dollar venture funds to find those next most powerful social media and apps that engage people. It is creating billionaires. In fact, everything is becoming appified. Banks have apps, and churches have apps, and rock groups have apps, and celebrities have apps, and you can have apps to track your flight and to track your dental schedules. You have apps for financial planning, and you have communication apps. In fact, it's all about communication. And how can we reach further and faster? As human beings, our most fundamental desire and need is to communicate with others. It's what separates us from the beast. But now there's another thing emerging, and it's kind of infiltrating. It's becoming a part of it. It's called gamification. And you need to pay attention to this trend because it is being laid on top of the world everywhere. It's about inspiring people to create experiences, not just interactions, but experiences. Gamification is about behavior modification and behavior mechanics. Through the fun, bottom line, as human beings, we're also competitive. We love to communicate and we love to compete. Even if we don't do it overtly, like sports athletes, the reality is if there's a list of best to worst or largest to least, we always want to be higher on the list. And we love watching ourselves move up that list. It's not just about games like Farmville, though Farmville has 72 million people logged in any given instant typically around the world. It's about the fact that gamification creates movement towards excellence and winning. There are global 2,000 companies right now that are hiring gamification experts to come in and gamify every aspect of their operation, from the job of the receptionist to the secretary to the marketing assistant to the vice president of operations, because they realize that through the gamification, by being able to direct behavior to those things that create the most efficiency, the most effectiveness, and therefore the highest profitability, they get the greatest result. And it's fun because the secretary can see that she's doing her job so well, she's kicking the VP's butt because he's not doing his. In other words, it makes everybody step up their game. That's what the magic is of combining them all. And when you bring it all together, there's just one last challenge to overcome. In today's world versus 5 years ago, a 14-year-old kid could come out with an app and get rich and be the news story. Not anymore. There are millions of apps. Today, it's a game of money. Take mobile, eat out, cash in. Their budgets with their VCs, when they do their venture capital raises, a majority of the money they raise is not just to build the app, it's to spend money, real hard money on marketing, to go out and market and create the awareness so they can get an installation. $10 to $50 In fact, there are companies right now spending $100, $200, some $500 and $600 for each initial installation because they're high-end elite niche apps. But that is the world. Appification, everything's being appified. The gamification and bottom line money gets you to the top. And the companies that figure it out are extraordinary. The Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Voxer, the Pinterest. Because if they figure it out, it's a multi-billion dollar playground. But here's the interesting thing. It's driven by you. You take a look at Facebook and Twitter. Take a look at Instagram and Pinterest. You know what they're all about? Communication. Words with friends, a wonderful game on your phone or wherever. It's about communication. Voxer, one of the fastest growing communication apps. Again, communication is who we are, it's what we are. Voxer over 200 or 250,000 downloads a day now and accelerating. Why? Because it's a new way to communicate. In fact, instead of the old chat apps where you typed the text, you typed the chat, with Voxer, it's PTT, push to talk. You press a button, and now you just talk in your voice. You don't have to be driving in traffic, typing with your fingers and creating a wreck. Press a button, say what you want to say, and you can be in Des Moines and somebody else in Tokyo. A few seconds later, here's a beep. They press the button and hear it. They press another button and they talk back. It's that evolution of communication. But here's the key. Why are these multi-billion dollar players worth that? Because of you, because of me, because of us. We created the value. And what I mean is, Facebook, Twitter, these things, Pinterest, they're great platforms. Tremendous engineering created awesome platforms. But the platforms didn't create the multi-billion dollar value. It was the presence of us. In Facebook, we create our accounts, and what do? We tell everybody about it because we love that social interaction experience. In Instagram, they created a platform. By itself, it was worth anything. When we came and brought our photos and we began to interact socially, it created tremendous value. Pinterest, we started pinning things on the board. Voxer, we start pressing the button and communicating. What do? When we download a Voxer, we tell everybody about it. Who do we tell? Our families, our friends, the people at church, the people at the office, because these are the people we communicate with every day. We are driving the value. We are driving the value. They get the billions. The board, the executives are worth the billions, but we created the value. See, here's the question. How far is your reach? How much value have you created? In fact, quite frankly, how powerful are you at being able to create value? Well, let's take a look at that still pond early in the dawn of light, in the morning dawn. All you need is a little bitty pebble. You toss it out in the middle of the pond. Starts very small at first, as you see. Give it a moment, and it starts to spread further and further. But the reality is, we all know this. We all understand this. We've all heard about our sphere of influence, our social graph. But the problem is, it really continues infinitely until at some point it's so far away we can't actually see it and touch it. It's not even real anymore. It's conceptually we know we maybe made an impact. How many people are on Facebook or Twitter or are using Voxer or Pinterest today because you experienced it and told them about it? How many people in the future will you influence about something that grabs your attention? But the question is, how far will that reach really go? How much of that multi-billion dollar value did you really, or were you really a part of creating? We believe the world has changed, and it is time for a change, where the power of one to change many is now not just a vague concept, something that's so far in the distance you can't see it. Instead, it is transparent, it is precise, it is crystal clear, and it is tracked down to the individual in real time everywhere in the world. You see, transparency is the new currency. Because imagine if you really could track exactly how much of Facebook you were personally responsible for creating because of your influence. What if, because it could be tracked specifically, exactly how many people you spoke to, how many people you invited to the environment, how many people you shared the environment with, and how many they did and how many they did? What if you just did what you've always done? You experience things, you download apps, you engage with them, they make your life better, they make it more enjoyable, they make it more productive, and when you like it, you just share with others. But what if, because there was transparency and there was specific awareness of exactly what your social graph impact was, maybe you could just be given reward points. It's like frequent flyer miles on an airplane. If you're loyal and you follow the behavior, you could take those points and get free airline flights. Well, what if the points could be accumulated and you could earn rewards of real value, because as you help to create that multi-billion dollar value platform, What if your social graph was tracked so you could share in that reward? You see, it's time to reward you for your social graph. It's your turn, and it's time to get in the game. And that's what Rippln is all about. And that is the Rippln rollout. That's what those few hundred in Dallas, just a short time ago, saw when the curtain opened. Once they were under NDA and they saw the curtain open, see, so many people have misunderstood. There's so much flying around now. I mean, this is moving so dramatically. There is a communication app that will be released, and that's really the beginning of Rippln, but people thought that as the official beginning that that's what it was. It's a leading edge communication app, kind of like a Voxer and other things combined to be kind of a communication app on steroids. But the thing about technology, it always evolves. People will always catch up, and we will always continue to move forward, as will they. People thought that Rippln was about a communication app, or that Rippln was an app company, and it's not. Rippln is a platform of transparent social graph tracking on a planetary basis. And there is a four-way strategy to reward the Ripple makers specifically based on their sphere of influence. And that's what's happening. The first official step is at the end of May, beginning of June, when the communication app becomes a mechanism, because it's such an engaging, it's such a powerful communication app. Everyone who uses it, what are they going to do as human beings that love to communicate? With just natural human behavior, they are going to tell their family, their relatives, their friends, their coworkers, their social organization participants, their religious organization participants. They're going to tell everybody about it because that's who they communicate with. It's free, but it's by invitation only. Because by being by invitation only, just like with Gmail at first, we can track exactly what your social graph is and exactly how much value you brought, and you can be rewarded for the value you've created. Finally, you can participate not just in the growth, but in the reward. Now, here is where we can't go further in detail, because this is where the first stage process before the launch of the communication app, that's our NDA process. This is the buzz phase. This is where you've been told by someone to come take a look at this and let us see if we can get you enough information. If you can realize that sometimes what you see at first, like with Amazon, is just a small tip, and the true picture is so vast and so far down the road, it will get there one day, and there are many who already understand it, but for most, they'll never know it until they just experience it. But you can see the indicators. Now it's time to play the game. And what is the game? It's very simple. There's no way to make any kind of a decision without more information. And at this stage, it's all under NDA only. So all you have to do is get in the game by getting back to the person who invited you to see this information overview. They will send you an invitation. It has an 8-character code. They are limited in the number they have, and it's time sensitive. It's only good for 24 hours. But in many cases, people won't even send it to someone if they aren't going to use it immediately. Because as they can get more invitations only after all the limited invitations they have are executed. So will be the case for you. Once you take that invitation, you simply go to a website, execute a simple electronic NDA in 2 or 3 minutes, and then you will have a login and password that allows you to get into the Rippln system, and you can start to see in more depth what they've seen. If it's not for you, that's great. If it is for you, you will have the ability to have limited invitations as well, and you'll be able to issue them. In fact, there's another information piece that we've created they can point you to right now that in a short 10-minute video will show you exactly how to execute that NDA invitation, how to immediately log into the system with your username and password that you've just set up, how to see the rest of the story or so much more of the story, and then how to share that with others if that's an interest to you. But now's your chance, and now's the time. Now's the time to get in the game, because you've created value all these years. It was just never tracked in a way that you could be rewarded, and now it's time. So just get back to the person who introduced you to this information. If you've got an interest, they'll send you an invitation. Respect them, respect yourself. Do something with it immediately on your smartphone or on a computer. Immediately execute that, get under NDA, log in and take a look. And then when you see what we see, and then you know what we know, we feel confident you'll do what we're doing, sharing this message as fast as we can, with as many as we can, because Rippln is an idea whose time has come in just a short period of time, from a few hundred to hundreds of thousands, and we still have 4 to 5 weeks before we get to the launch point, where when that communication app comes out, that value alone will drive more explosive growth than we've ever seen. And the platform will be created. Then as the monetization of that and the value of that platform is put in place, you'll be able to share in that. And how that happens are things that we can start to share with you once you're under NDA. So thanks for spending some time. I hope it's been of value to you. Get back to the person. They'll get that invitation to you, and we'll see you very soon. And we can get to Rippln, and you can be a part of starting your Ripples and watching them as they expand across the country and around the world. Thanks for spending time with us. Again, my name is Curtis Broom, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thanks, and goodbye.